taking this opportunity to indicate to my radio family that I will be retiring from radio at the end of this month, May 29. I guess after 35 years, the full stop has to go in somewhere.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch. And that was 79-year-old shock jock Alan Jones announcing his retirement from radio after 35 years behind the mic. That's a long time in anybody's book. But if you're getting up at 2:30 a.m, 5 days a week, to churn out more than 3 hours of live radio, it must seem like an age. No wonder Jones's doctors told him,
Alan, continuing with the present workload is seriously detrimental to your health.
Jones's departure will doubtless leave his listeners bereft, having lifted him to a record 226 consecutive ratings wins, which is why he was paid $4 million a year. But it will leave many politicians relieved, because popularity brought Jones power, as you might guess from reactions to his parting.
You've always done the right thing by your country, and we're very proud of that.
I certainly respect his contribution to the media over such a long period of time.
He was the most influential radio broadcaster of my time in politics.
Truth is, Jones had politicians of both sides running scared. As journalist Chris Masters, the author of Jonestown, told the ABC,
the sad thing about the politicians is that they kowtowed to him. You know, in one of the chapters of my book, I called it The Godfather, and, you know, it bothered me that premiers and prime ministers would seek an audience with Alan, and they needed his assent.
But it wasn't just politicians who feared his angry tirades. Scientists, sports administrators, trade union leaders and hapless public servants all felt the lash of Jones's tongue at times. And he reserved a special scorn for powerful women, like New Zealand's Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern.
She's a clown, Jacinda Ardern, a complete clown. I just wonder whether Scott Morrison's going to be fully briefed to shove a sock down the throat. I mean, she is a joke, this woman, an absolute and utter lightweight.
And that was not the first time Jones had berated and bullied a female leader, as former PM Julia Gillard knows all too well.
Go away, Julia. We don't want to see you. We don't want to hear you. Climb into a chaff bag.
And who could forget his disgraceful comments about Australia's first female Prime Minister at a private function.
Every person in the caucus of the Labor Party knows that Julia Gillard's a liar. You'll never be known who's going to jail.
Jones eventually said sorry to Gillard, as he did to Ardern, but not to Indigenous football star Adam Goodes when crowds were booing him on the field.
There are 71 Indigenous players in the AFL. One is being booed. Does Adam Goodes ever look into the mirror and ask himself why? They just don't like the fellow. And Adam Goodes can fix all this by changing his behaviour.
Jones's controversies are too many to list, but special mention must be made of his role in the 2005 Cronulla riots, where he was found by the media regulator to have incited violence and hatred against Muslims by reading listener comments like this.
My suggestion is to invite one of the biker gangs to be present in numbers at Cronulla railway station when these Lebanese thugs arrive. Australians old and new shouldn't have to put up with this scum.
Australian Lebanese business leader Talal Yassin told the ABC last week he recognised Jones as a brilliant communicator, but also
someone who really stoked and inflamed and continued to, throughout the course of his career, division, blame and indeed hate toward particular groups who may have been the object of his attack. And they included media personalities, political personalities, but they also included the Muslim community over a very long period of time.
Jones famously also accepted cash for comment, which Media Watch exposed in 1999. And his employers paid out millions in defamation cases to defend his relentless crusades. Most notably, $3.7 million to the Wagner brothers in late 2018, after Jones blamed them for the death of 12 people in Queensland's Grantham floods. Justice Flanagan's scathing judgment in that case found Jones had run a campaign of vilification that was vicious and spiteful and motivated to injure the plaintiff's reputation. Jones told Nine last week,
of course there are circumstances where you do regret, but you can't live your life in regret. If you had your time over again, you'd do things differently. And I've been rightly condemned for some of the things that I've said and done in the heat of the moment.
The Wagner case caused a huge falling out between Jones and Macquarie Radio, with the two sides eventually talking through lawyers' letters. But last August, Nine took over the network after Jones had signed up for 2 more years. Except by then, an advertising boycott prompted by his attack on Jacinda Ardern was gathering force. And as more brands quit in protest, the revenue Jones brought in fell by 50%, from $12 million to $6 million a year, which is why activist group Mad Fucking Witches last week claimed his scalp on social media.
We did it! We took on a misogynist bastard and won! By the end, 530 advertisers were out of the show. They couldn't sustain the crippling losses. Yay!
Nine is adamant it did not push Jones out, and it was his choice to go. But seems virtually no one in the media believes them. And let's not forget, while Jones is leaving radio, he is not retiring. He'll still appear on Sky twice a week. They apparently want him more, and write for the News Corp papers. But without his daily radio show and 500,000 listeners, Alan's capacity to shape the public debate will surely wane. At the very least, fewer people will hear him calling climate change a hoax or comparing COVID-19 to seasonal flu. 2GB's drive host Ben Fordham will take over the slot and have the task of winning back those advertisers. We wish him luck, and we'll be watching. But now, to the continuing carnage in the media. Last week, BuzzFeed decided to close its Australian and UK newsrooms. And today, 10's digital arm, 10 Daily, announced it is closing this Friday, following cuts at Foxtel, News Corp, 7 and 9, and cuts to come at the ABC. But nowhere is the damage worse than in magazines.
Australia's magazine industry in crisis as Bauer Media folds 7 titles.
It's barely 2 weeks since the German-owned Bauer took over 7's Pacific magazines and put fierce competitors like New Idea and Woman's Day, and That's Life and Take 5, into the same ownership. And since then, the cuts have been brutal.
Bauer has made the difficult decision to hibernate select titles for a short period of time. Lower than anticipated advertising revenue created by COVID-19 has forced us to make this decision.
Put to sleep, perhaps for good, but at least until September, are popular high-profile titles like Men's Health, Women's Health, Harper's Bazaar and Elle magazine, plus MediaWatch regular NW. Bauer insists they'll be back when the market improves, but the fear is that some will join the list of titles Bauer has closed since taking over Australia's leading magazine publisher ACP 8 years ago, for $500 million, which incidentally is 12 times what it just paid for Pacific Mags. The list includes household names like Clio, Dolly, Cosmopolitan, The Picture and People, and Top Gear, which have been turned into museum pieces as advertising and sales dried up. So, with the latest cuts, it's looking like the end of an era, which began with Frank Packer's launch of the Australian Women's Weekly in the 1930s and reached its heyday in the 80s and 90s under Kerry Packer, when editors like Nene King and her fierce rival Dulcie Bowling could do no wrong.
Doing okay. Our numbers are rising, like you said they had to. But at this rate, it'll take us 5 years to catch Dulcie.
So what do you propose?
Boys, you have to spend money to make money.
And that they did, reaching circulation figures of 1 million plus.
Woman's Day is number 1!
But Bauer's not just chopping titles in this current cull. Hundreds of jobs are on the block as well. On the day that Pacific Mag staff came aboard, they were told via Zoom
there would be significant job cuts as Pacific was integrated into the company.
So far, more than 120 people, including editorial managers, writers, artists and designers, have lost their jobs, and around 100 have been stood down without pay, JobKeeper payment or return date. One who survived so far told MediaWatch,
"The whole thing has been disrespectful, cruel and painful. PacMag staff are terrified and unsure of the future, and Bauer has shown just how little they care."
And Mumbrella's Tim Burrows agrees Bauer's behaviour has been harsh.
It's not acting like a company that cares about its reputation as an employer or intends to have some sort of constructive relationship with people at the other side.
When Bauer first bid for PacMags last October, it was looking forward to a virtual market monopoly. But by the time the competition watchdog, the ACCC, cleared the deal, on the basis that the industry was dying anyway, revenues had been smashed by coronavirus. Forced to go through with the deal, it then set about slashing costs to the bone, shutting its NZ titles after failing to sell them for $1, and even cutting back at the Australian Women's Weekly and its money-making beauty department.
They've cut the style director. That's the person who does the shoots. They've cut the beauty director and the beauty writer. Until this time, Australian Women's Weekly has been untouchable, immune. It's their cash cow.
And they've done the same at In Style, Marie Claire and other Bauer titles. All in all, the outlook is dismal. And one magazine legend, former Marie Claire editor Jackie Frank, is despairing.
I can't believe I'm seeing the death of magazines before my eyes in my lifetime. It's the ACCC's worst nightmare. After their review, they said that closures were inevitable, but the deal would not affect the quality or pricing of rival publications. Well, I wonder what they're thinking with the announcements of all the redundancies on day one.
And on whether those hibernated titles will return, Frank says,
I don't think they're coming back.
Frank hopes, when the dust settles, that at least Australian Women's Weekly, Better Homes and Gardens and her beloved Marie Claire will survive. But the fact their future's even being questioned shows just how dire the situation has become. Bauer Media says it is 100% committed to the PacMag titles. You can read their full response to Media Watch on our website. But finally, to the cruise ship that incubated hundreds of coronavirus cases and an inquiry trying to work out how it was allowed to happen.
A New South Wales health official has broken down under intense questioning over the Ruby Princess debacle, apologising in tears for a litany of mistakes.
We did what we could. And if we could do it again, it would be very different.
It was hard not to feel sorry for Kellyanne Wrestler, who faced a barrage of tough questions from Commissioner Brett Walker SC. And even the Prime Minister was moved to say she'd been pushed too far.
I found that a bit out of line, Ray, and I think to see her reduced to that under that sort of aggressive line of what would appear questioning, you got to get the balance right on this one, and I would hope that Mr. Walker would reflect on that.
But it was another piece of commentary that caused a much bigger fuss. In a column for The Australian, David Penberthy called the questioning of Wrestler disgraceful and the inquiry a sham.
The treatment of this woman was an act of state-sponsored bastardry, designed to ensure that whatever villains are found in this affair do not inhabit New South Wales Cabinet. It's a taxpayer-funded show trial aimed at achieving a political end.
It was scathing stuff, and Penberthy also loaded up the gun for his 5AA breakfast show in Adelaide.
What they are clearly doing with Brett Walker SC, the Commissioner, it is a taxpayer-funded arse-covering exercise for that incompetent Brad Hazzard, the Health Minister there.
Counsel assisting the Ruby Princess inquiry, Richard Beasley SC, soon returned fire with both barrels. On the notion that Wrestler should not have been exposed to the grilling, he said firmly,
that is not rationally debatable.
And at the suggestion of a government fix, he was also adamant.
I know for a fact that no person within New South Wales Government, much less the Cabinet or the Health Minister, has in any way attempted to interfere with this Commission's independence.
Beasley also demanded an immediate response from the Australian on why it should avoid charges of contempt, which can carry hefty fines or a spell in jail. And that duly arrived on Friday in the form of a swift back down.
The Australian unreservedly apologises and withdraws any criticism of the Commissioner or the inquiry. The Australian did not intend to call into question the Commissioner's integrity and accepts it is beyond reproach.
So why did the Australian fold so meekly? We're told there was little appetite at News Corp to fight a court battle. It probably had little chance of winning. But there was plenty of upset about the legal threat which could have charged Penberthy and his editors with scandalising the court. That is an obscure and ancient charge which was levied and then dropped against journalists and editors who criticised the way the Pell verdict was initially suppressed. So, why does this law exist? Well, its purpose is to limit political or public attacks on judges and their verdicts. Or, as lawyer Michael Bradley put it to Media Watch,
it's about public confidence in the administration of justice generally. I thought it was outrageous what Penberthy wrote. It does directly undermine the integrity of that commission.
But others see it as an unfair and outdated curb on freedom of speech. Victoria University law academic Bill Swanee told Media Watch,
these laws are ambiguous and they have a chilling effect on commentary and criticism of courts, judges and their decisions. In particular, the media may be hesitant to report on or criticise judges and courts. This may prevent public scrutiny of public interest issues, such as improper conduct by a judge.
In this case, David Penberthy may well have overstepped the mark, but perhaps the Commission also overreacted to what was really only a pinprick attack. This is a government-established Commission of Inquiry with enormous public interest. Did it really need to use the law to shut down criticism, however wild and intemperate it may have been? I humbly beg to suggest it did not. That's all from us tonight. There's more on our website. And don't forget Media Bites every Thursday on your favourite social media platform. But for now, until next week, goodbye.